Welcome to Story Tales. Please like this video and subscribe to Story Tales. I hope you enjoy the story. Let's begin. The automatic doors of St. Luke's Hospital Emergency Department slid shut behind Nolan Trask with a soft hiss. He pulled his jacket tighter against the October chill and walked toward his pickup truck. The parking lot stretched empty under the amber glow of streetlights. 14 hours. 2 cardiac arrests, 1 stabbing, 3 overdoses, and a 12-year-old with a broken arm whose parents screamed at each other while he set the cast. Nolan slid into the driver's seat and pulled out his phone. The dashboard clock read 11:47 p.m. He pressed Sierra's contact and held the phone to his ear while starting the engine. Ring, ring, ring. Hi, you've reached Sierra? I can't come to the phone right now, but leave a message and I'll get back to you. Nolan ended the call without leaving a message. Normal. Sierra rarely answered when he called after work. She said the phone disturbed her when she was decompressing. The drive home took 23 minutes through quiet suburban streets lined with houses that looked like carbon copies of each other. Brick facades, 2-car garages, manicured lawns that would soon be buried under fallen leaves. Nolan had bought the house 3 years ago when he married Sierra. A fresh start for him and Brinley after losing Emma to cancer. His headlights swept across his driveway as he pulled in. The living room window glowed blue from the television. Sierra's car sat in the garage next to an empty space where it belonged. Nolan unlocked the front door and stepped inside. The house smelled like leftover Chinese takeout and vanilla candles. Connie sat in the recliner facing the TV, her silver hair perfectly styled despite the late hour. She wore a cream-colored sweater and dark slacks, as if she'd been expecting company. "Evening, Connie," Nolan said, hanging his jacket on the hook by the door. "Oh, hello, dear." She didn't look away from the screen where a talk show host interviewed a celebrity chef. Sierra went upstairs around 9. Her back was bothering her again. Nolan's eyes swept the living room. Fast food containers sat on the coffee table. A throw pillow had fallen to the floor. And there, curled up on the couch in yesterday's school clothes, was Brinley. She fell asleep watching TV, Connie said, finally glancing at him. Poor thing was exhausted. Nolan walked to the couch and knelt beside his daughter. Brinley's dark hair fell across her face. Her jeans had dirt smudges on the knees, and her purple t-shirt was wrinkled. She clutched a stuffed elephant that Emma had given her before she died. "Brinley." He touched her shoulder gently. "Hey, sweetheart." Her eyes fluttered open. "Dad, come on. Let's get you to bed." She sat up slowly, rubbing her eyes. "I waited for you to come home." "I know. Work ran late." He helped her stand. "Did you eat dinner?" Brinley glanced toward Connie, then back at him. "I wasn't hungry." Nolan studied his daughter's face. Dark circles under her eyes. She'd lost weight over the past few weeks. "We'll talk tomorrow, okay?" Brinley nodded and picked up her elephant. Nolan walked her upstairs, past the master bedroom, where a sliver of light showed under the door. Sierra's voice drifted through, talking on the phone. "Brush your teeth and get your pajamas on," he told Brinley at her bedroom door. "I'll check on you in a few minutes." When he returned downstairs, Connie was in the kitchen loading the dishwasher with takeout containers. "How long was Brinley on the couch?" Nolan asked. "Oh, not long. Maybe since 7:30. Connie dried her hands on a dish towel. She said she finished her homework. Such a good girl. Nolan opened the refrigerator. Leftover Chinese food, a half-empty carton of milk, condiments. No sign that anyone had cooked a real meal. Did she eat anything? She picked at some lo mein earlier. You know how kids are with Chinese food. He closed the refrigerator and looked at Connie. She had the same smile Sierra wore when she was being evasive. Pleasant but empty. "I'm going to check on her," Nolan said. Upstairs, he found Brinley in her bed, covers pulled up to her chin. Her room was clean. Too clean. The bookshelf that usually held a jumbled collection of novels and art supplies was organized by color. Her desk sat empty except for a small stack of completed homework. "Dad." Brinley's voice was quiet in the darkness. "Yeah. Are you mad at me?" Nolan sat on the edge of her bed. "Why would I be mad at you?" "I don't know. Sometimes I think I do things wrong." He reached out and smoothed her hair away from her forehead. "You don't do things wrong, Brinley. You're 11. You're supposed to make mistakes and learn from them." Connie says I need to try harder to be helpful. Like a lady. Something cold settled in Nolan's chest. What does that mean? She showed me how to fold towels the right way, and how to dust the furniture so it doesn't leave streaks. Brinley's voice got smaller. Sierra says I should learn these things, because someday I'll have my own house. Nolan kept his voice steady. Did anyone ask you to clean the house today? Brinley was quiet for a long moment. It was like a game. What kind of game? They said they bet I couldn't clean the living room and kitchen in 2 hours. Like a dare. Her fingers twisted the edge of her blanket. I thought it would be fun, but then they just sat there and watched me. And they laughed when I couldn't get the baseboards clean enough. The cold in Nolan's chest spread to his arms and legs. How long did you clean? I don't know. A long time. My knees hurt from scrubbing the floor. She pulled her legs up under the covers. They said I was soft like my real mom, that she never taught me to work hard. Nolan's hands clenched into fists, but his voice remained calm. What happened when you finished? Connie said I did okay for a beginner. Then they ordered Chinese food and ate it while watching TV. I asked if I could have some, but Sierra said I should probably just go to bed since I was tired from all that work. So you didn't eat dinner. I had some crackers from my lunchbox. Nolan leaned down and kissed Brinley's forehead. Thank you for telling me. That won't happen again. Are you going to yell at them? No, sweetheart. I'm not going to yell. Okay. Brinley's eyelids were getting heavy. I love you, Dad. I love you too. Nolan waited until her breathing became deep and even, then went to his own bedroom. The light was off now, and Sierra was curled under the covers facing away from the door. Sierra, he said quietly. Her voice was muffled by the pillow. How was your day? Fine. Tired. My back's been killing me. Nolan changed into sleep clothes and got into bed. Sierra didn't move. He lay in the darkness, staring at the ceiling, listening to her breathe. After a while, he pulled out his phone and opened the Notes app. October 15th, be forced to clean house for hours as dare. Denied dinner. Clothing dirty, knees bruised from scrubbing floors. S claims back pain, C supervised. B reports being called soft like real mom. He saved the note and set the phone on his nightstand. Then he lay awake until dawn, thinking. Nolan woke before his alarm at 6 a.m. Sierra was already gone from bed. He found her in the kitchen making coffee, wearing yoga pants and an oversized sweater. Her blonde hair was pulled back in a messy bun, and she had dark circles under her eyes that her concealer couldn't quite hide. Morning, she said without looking at him. Coffee's almost ready. Thanks. Nolan opened the refrigerator and pulled out eggs and milk. I'm making breakfast. You want some? I'm not really hungry. I might have a smoothie later. Connie appeared in the doorway, wearing a navy blue dress and pearls. Good morning, Nolan. How did you sleep? Fine. He cracked eggs into a bowl. Brinley will be down soon. She needs a good breakfast. Of course. Connie poured herself coffee and added cream from a small pitcher. I was thinking today might be a good day to teach her how to properly make a bed. The corners never seem quite right when she does it herself. Nolan stopped whisking the eggs. She's 11, Connie. Her bed doesn't need to look like a hotel room. It's never too early to learn proper habits. Connie's smile was patient, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. Emma was more of a free spirit, wasn't she? Sometimes that means the practical things get overlooked. The mention of his first wife made Nolan's jaw tighten, but he kept whisking. Emma taught Brinley plenty. Oh, I didn't mean any offense. It's just that children need structure, especially girls. They need to learn how to take care of a home. Footsteps on the stairs announced Brinley's arrival. She came into the kitchen wearing clean jeans and a green sweater, her hair brushed but not quite smooth. She tried to braid herself, but one side was looser than the other. Morning, sweetheart. Nolan poured the eggs into a hot pan. Hungry. Brinley nodded and climbed onto a stool at the kitchen island. She glanced at Sierra, who was scrolling through her phone, then at Connie, who was studying her with a critical expression. Your hair needs work, Connie said. Come here, and I'll fix it properly. It's fine, Nolan said. She did it herself. But it's uneven. People will notice. Brinley slid off the stool and walked to Connie, who began taking apart the braid with sharp, efficient movements. You need to pull tighter at the scalp, Connie said. Otherwise it looks sloppy. And make sure each section is exactly the same size. Ow! Brinley winced as Connie tugged at a tangle. Beauty requires effort, Connie said. Your hair is so thick. It's going to take patience to train it properly. Nolan plated the scrambled eggs and set them in front of Brinley along with a glass of orange juice. Eat up. We need to leave in 20 minutes. Brinley picked up her fork but didn't take a bite. She sat perfectly still while Connie worked on her hair, her shoulders tense. There, Connie said, stepping back. Much better. See how neat that looks? The braid was tight and perfect, pulling at the corners of Brinley's eyes. She touched it carefully. Thank you. Now eat, Nolan said. And tell me about school. What do you have today? Math test. An art class. Brinley took a small bite of eggs. Ms. Peterson said we're starting a new project with watercolors. That sounds fun. It is. We get to paint anything we want. For the first time that morning, Brinley smiled. I'm going to paint the tree in our backyard. The one with the swing. The oak tree? Nolan asked. That's a good choice. All those fall colors. Sierra looked up from her phone. Just make sure you don't get paint on your clothes. That watercolor stains. Brinley's smile faded. I'll be careful. Speaking of careful, Connie said, I noticed some scuff marks on the kitchen floor yesterday. You'll need to be more mindful about wiping your feet. I always wipe my feet, Brinley said quietly. Well, something left marks. Maybe your shoes need better soles. Nolan watched his daughter's face shut down. She finished her eggs quickly and asked to be excused. Go get your backpack, he told her. I'll meet you at the car. When Brinley left the kitchen, Nolan turned to Connie. She's a kid, not a house guest. This is her home. Of course it is. I'm just trying to help her develop good habits. By criticizing everything she does. Sierra finally looked up from her phone. Mom's not criticizing. She's teaching. Teaching what? That nothing Brinley does is good enough. You're being dramatic. Sierra's voice had an edge to it. Every child needs guidance. Nolan rinsed his plate in the sink and placed it in the dishwasher. Emma used to say Brinley was perfect exactly as she is. Emma's not here anymore, Sierra said. The words hung in the air like a slap. Nolan slowly dried his hands on a dish towel and looked at his wife. Her face was defiant, but there was something else there too. Satisfaction. No, he said quietly. She's not. He left the kitchen without another word. I in the car. Brinley was quiet until they were halfway to school. Dad, yeah, do you think I'm too soft? Nolan's hands tightened on the steering wheel. What do you mean? Connie and Sierra say I need to be tougher, that I cry too easy and I don't work hard enough. Brinley stared out the passenger window. Maybe if I was tougher, they would like me more. Nolan pulled into the school parking lot and found a spot near the front entrance. He turned off the engine and looked at his daughter. Brinley, look at me. She turned toward him, her dark eyes serious. You are exactly the right amount tough. You're kind and creative and smart, and those are good things. Don't let anyone tell you that being sensitive makes you weak. But what if they're right? What if I'm soft like Mom was? Your mom was one of the strongest people I ever knew. She fought cancer for 2 years and never stopped taking care of you. Never stopped reading you stories or helping with homework or making sure you knew how much you were loved. Nolan reached over and took Brinley's hand. Being soft doesn't mean being weak. It means having a heart big enough to care about other people. Brinley squeezed his fingers. I miss her. I miss her too. They sat in the car for another minute, watching kids stream into the school building. If something happens at home that makes you uncomfortable, will you tell me? Nolan asked. Like what? Anything. If someone says something that hurts your feelings or asks you to do something that doesn't seem right, even if they say it's normal or it's for your own good. Brinley nodded. Okay. Promise. Promise. Nolan walked her to the entrance and watched until she disappeared into the hallway. Then he drove to work, his mind already turning over possibilities. St. Luke's emergency department buzzed with controlled chaos. Nolan checked in at the nurse's station and reviewed his patient assignments for the day. 2 hours into his shift, during a brief lull between ambulances, he found Jessa restocking supplies in the medication room. Jessa Lang had worked the ER for 15 years. She was built like a marathon runner, all sharp angles and efficient movement. Her short auburn hair was streaked with gray, and she had laugh lines around her green eyes that came from years of finding humor in impossible situations. "You look like hell," she said without looking up from the bandage inventory. "Thanks. Always nice to get a professional opinion. Seriously, Nolan, you've got that 1,000-yard stare thing going on." Jessa marked something on her clipboard and turned to face him. "What's wrong?" Nolan glanced toward the hallway to make sure they were alone. "Can I ask you something? As a friend, not as a co-worker." "Shoot. If you suspected a child was being emotionally abused, what would you look for? What kind of evidence would hold up?" Jessa's expression sharpened. "We talking about one of your patients? We're talking hypothetically." "Uh-huh." She set down her clipboard. "Hypothetically, you'd want documentation. Photos of any physical signs, even minor ones. Bruises, cuts, evidence of excessive cleaning or labor. Written records of concerning statements or behaviors. Witness testimony from teachers, counselors, neighbors. What about video? If it's legally obtained, sure. But you'd need consent from anyone being recorded, and it would have to be in a place where they'd have no expectation of privacy." Nolan nodded slowly. "And what about emotional abuse? Harder to prove, right?" "Yeah, but not impossible. Pattern of behavior is key, showing that the treatment is consistent, deliberate, and harmful to the child's well-being." Jessa studied his face. "Nolan, if this is about Brinley, I'm not saying it is, but if it was, you need to be smart about it. Emotional abusers are often manipulative. They'll turn things around, make you look like the problem." She lowered her voice. "They'll claim you're the one being harmful. What's the best way to protect against that? Build your case quietly. Get multiple sources of documentation. Make sure you have witnesses who can't be easily discredited." Jessa picked up her clipboard again. "And whatever you do, don't let them know you're collecting evidence." "Why?" "Because if they think you're a threat, they'll escalate. Or they'll destroy evidence. Or they'll strike first and try to paint you as unstable." A call light chimed, and both nurses looked toward the main floor. "That's my patient," Jessa said. "But Nolan, be careful. And if you need help with anything hypothetically speaking, you call me." The rest of Nolan's shift passed in a blur of patient care and routine tasks. But his mind kept returning to Jessa's words. "Build your case quietly." On his lunch break, he went to his truck and searched on his phone for security cameras. Small ones, wireless, with cloud storage. The kind that could be hidden easily and accessed remotely. He found a system that would work and placed an order for same-day delivery. Then he opened a new note on his phone and began typing. October 16th, be asked if she's too soft. Reports being told she needs to be tougher and work harder. Asked why S and C don't like her. Still no dinner last night. Ate crackers from lunchbox. He saved the note and started a new one. Observations needed. Physical condition of B after chores. Statements made by S and C about B's character or worth. Evidence of B being isolated or punished. Comparison between public statements and private behavior. When he got home that evening, the house was quiet. Sierra's car was gone. Connie sat in the living room with a book, and Brinley was at the kitchen table doing homework. "Where's Sierra?" Nolan asked Connie. "Book club. Won't be back until late." Connie didn't look up from her novel. "I made dinner. Tuna casserole. It's in the oven." Nolan found Brinley struggling with a math worksheet. Her pencil eraser was worn down to the metal, and there were smudge marks where she'd been erasing and rewriting. "Having trouble?" he asked, sitting beside her. "I keep getting the wrong answer." Brinley pointed to a long division problem. "I thought I understood it in class, but now nothing makes sense. Let's work through it together." They spent 20 minutes on math, Nolan guiding her through each step without giving her the answers. When she finally solved the last problem correctly, she grinned. "I got it. You did. You just needed to slow down and think through each step." Connie says I think too slow. That I need to work faster or I'll never keep up in middle school. Another note for his phone. Nolan helped Brinley pack up her homework and sent her to wash up for dinner. While she was upstairs, he texted his neighbor Trevor. "Hey, could you use some help with your yard work this weekend?" Happy to lend a hand. Trevor's response came quickly. "Actually, yeah. Planning to rake leaves Saturday morning. Company would be nice. Perfect." Trevor's backyard shared a fence with Nolan's. He'd be in a position to see and hear anything that happened outside. And Trevor was the kind of person who noticed things. At the tea dinner, Brinley ate everything on her plate and asked for seconds. Connie commented that she was eating quite a lot for such a small girl. Nolan served Brinley another helping and told her growing kids needed plenty of food. After dinner, Brinley helped clear the table without being asked. Connie instructed her on the proper way to load the dishwasher, correcting her placement of plates twice. "We had a dishwasher when I was young," Connie said, "but my mother made sure I knew how to wash dishes by hand. A lady should be able to take care of her home without depending on machines." "Good thing we have machines then," Nolan said. "Makes life easier. Easy isn't always better. Children need to learn that some things require effort." That night, after Brinley was asleep, Nolan installed the first camera in her room, a tiny device that looked like a wall outlet but contained a lens and microphone. Brinley had agreed to it when he explained he wanted to make sure she was safe. "Like a security system?" she'd asked. "Exactly like that." He installed 2 more cameras over the next hour. One in the living room, hidden behind a picture frame. One in the kitchen, mounted inside a cabinet with a view of the main work area. All 3 cameras uploaded to cloud storage that only he could access. When Sierra came home at 11:30, she was unusually talkative. "Great book club tonight. We're reading this fascinating novel about family dynamics. Really makes you think about how children adapt to new situations." She changed into pajamas and brushed her teeth. The author has some interesting theories about resilience. How some kids just naturally bounce back from trauma, while others need more guidance. What kind of guidance? Structure, clear expectations, consequences for behavior that doesn't meet standards. Sierra got into bed and turned off her bedside lamp. Some children mistake kindness for weakness. They need to learn that love comes with responsibilities. Nolan lay in the darkness, listening to Sierra's breathing change as she fell asleep. Then he picked up his phone and added another note. October 16th discusses family dynamics and children needing guidance and consequences. Claims some children mistake kindness for weakness. Suggests love should come with responsibilities. Book club conversation or message for me. He set the phone aside and stared at the ceiling. The cameras would capture what happened when he wasn't home. But he needed more than video evidence. He needed witnesses who could testify to what they'd seen and heard. People like Trevor. People like Principal Dorn. People who had no reason to lie. Tomorrow, he would start building his case in earnest. 5 days of footage told a story that made Nolan's stomach turn. He sat in his truck during lunch break, watching recorded clips on his phone. The camera quality was surprisingly good. The audio clear enough to pick up conversations from across the room. Monday, Connie's standing over Brinley in the living room, making her refold a basket of laundry 3 times. Like a lady, not like a child. These corners need to be sharp. Brinley's small hands struggled with the fitted sheets while Connie criticized each attempt. Tuesday, Sierra in the kitchen, watching Brinley scrub the baseboards with a toothbrush. "Your real mother never taught you to pay attention to details, did she? That's okay. We'll fix that." The clip ran for 2 hours. Brinley missed her afternoon snack. Wednesday, both women sitting on the couch while Brinley cleaned the windows. "You're draining your father," Connie said. "He works so hard to support this family, and you just take and take. What do you give back?" Brinley wiped her eyes with the back of her hand, leaving streaks on the glass she'd just cleaned. Thursday, the worst one. Sierra holding up her phone, recording Brinley as she polished silverware at the kitchen table. "This is what a helpful stepdaughter looks like," Sierra said to her phone. "Teaching responsibility and family values." But when Brinley looked up and smiled hopefully, Sierra deleted the video. "Actually, you missed some spots. Do it again." Friday, Brinley asleep on the couch when Nolan came home. Again, Nolan closed the video app and opened his notes. The evidence was damning, but it was also methodical. Calculated. They were training Brinley to accept their treatment as normal while maintaining plausible deniability. The next morning, Brinley came downstairs wearing the same jeans as the day before. When Nolan asked about it, she said she'd wet the bed and put her clean clothes in the laundry. "Accidents happen," he told her. "No big deal." But it was a big deal. Brinley hadn't had bedwetting issues since right after Emma died 2 years ago. The stress was manifesting in physical symptoms. I'll strip your bed and wash everything today, he said. I can do it, Brinley said quickly. Connie showed me how to use the washing machine. You're 11. I'll handle the laundry. Relief flickered across her face before she caught herself and looked guilty. I'm sorry for making extra work. You're not making extra work. You're my daughter. Taking care of you is my job. That afternoon, Nolan called Dr. Sarah Mitchell, a child psychologist who specialized in trauma. He found her name through the hospital's employee assistance program. I'd like to bring my daughter in for an evaluation, he told her. She's been under some stress lately. Dr. Mitchell had an opening the following Monday. Can you give me a brief overview of your concerns? She's exhibiting regression behaviors, bedwetting, withdrawal, anxiety around normal childhood activities. She's in a blended family situation that may be contributing factors. How long has this been going on? About 3 weeks. Since school started. I see. And what's your relationship to the child? I'm her father. Biological father. Her mother died 2 years ago, and I remarried last year. Okay. Bring any recent school reports or medical records you have. And Mr. Trask? Document any specific incidents or behaviors you're concerned about. The more details I have, the better I can help her. Nolan scheduled the appointment and added another note to his phone. Professional evaluation would carry more weight than his own observations. Meanwhile, Sierra's social media presence told a completely different story. She posted photos of family dinners that had never happened, tagged Brinley in posts about stepmom life and blended family joy. The comments from her friends were full of praise for her patience and dedication. You're such an amazing stepmom. Brinley is so lucky to have you. Family goals. You guys look so happy together. The disconnect between Sierra's public image and her private behavior was staggering, but it also revealed something important. She cared deeply about how others perceived her. That vanity would be useful. On Sunday evening, Nolan sat in his truck in the hospital parking lot before his night shift, reviewing the week's footage one more time. The pattern was clear, documented, and witnessed by multiple cameras. But he needed more than video evidence to build a case that would hold up under scrutiny. He needed third-party validation, professional opinions, school records, and he needed to make sure that when he moved against Sierra and Connie, they would have no opportunity to retaliate against Brinley. Nolan requested a meeting with Principal Garrett Dorn on Tuesday morning. He'd called the school's main office and explained that he had concerns about Brinley's recent academic performance and wanted to discuss strategies for supporting her at home. Principal Dorn was a tall man with graying temples and wire-rimmed glasses. His office was decorated with student artwork and photos from school events. He gestured for Nolan to take a seat across from his desk. Thank you for coming in, Mr. Trask. I've been meaning to reach out to you, actually. Oh, Ms. Rodriguez, our school counselor, has had a few conversations with Brinley over the past couple of weeks. Nothing alarming, but some things that caught our attention. Nolan leaned forward. What kind of things? Principal Dorn opened a file folder and consulted some handwritten notes. Brinley has been more withdrawn in class. Her teacher, Ms. Peterson, says she's hesitant to participate in group activities and seems anxious about making mistakes. That doesn't sound like her. She usually loves school. That's what we thought too. Her academic performance hasn't declined significantly, but there's been a change in her confidence level. Principal Dorn removed his glasses and cleaned them thoughtfully. Ms. Rodriguez mentioned that Brinley expressed feeling like she was a problem at home. A problem how? She said she makes too much mess and needs to learn to be more helpful. When Ms. Rodriguez asked her to elaborate, Brinley said she was learning to be like a lady instead of acting like a child. Nolan's jaw tightened. Did she say who was teaching her that? She mentioned her stepmother and step-grandmother were helping her learn proper behavior. She seemed to think this was normal, but Ms. Rodriguez was concerned about the language being used. What did the counselor recommend? Principal Dorn consulted his notes again. She suggested that we monitor Brinley's emotional state and keep communication open with home. She also recommended that if the family is going through an adjustment period, it might be helpful to consider family counseling. I've already scheduled an appointment with a child psychologist. For Monday, that's excellent. We'll be happy to coordinate with her therapist if you sign a release of information form. Principal Dorn leaned back in his chair. Mr. Trask, can I speak frankly? Please. Brinley has been a student here since kindergarten. She's always been a bright, confident child, creative, empathetic, well-liked by her peers. This change in her demeanor is significant enough that multiple staff members have noticed. What exactly have they noticed? She apologizes constantly for things that don't require apologies. She asks permission for normal activities like going to the bathroom or getting a drink of water. Yesterday, she refused to eat her lunch because she said she needed to earn it first. Nolan felt something cold settle in his chest. Earn it how? By completing her morning work perfectly. When her teacher told her that lunch wasn't conditional on performance, Brinley seemed confused. She said that at home, sometimes you don't get to eat if you don't do your chores right. Did she say that specifically? Ms. Peterson documented the conversation. I can provide you with a copy. I like that. Principal Dorn made a note on his pad. Mr. Trask, I want to be clear that we're not making any accusations. Blended families often go through adjustment periods, and children sometimes interpret new rules in ways that weren't intended. But you're concerned enough to document these conversations. We document anything that seems outside the norm for a particular child. It's our policy. Principal Dorn's expression was careful but direct. If there are stressors at home that are affecting Brinley's well-being, we want to support her through that transition. And if the stressors aren't temporary, then we would work with the family and appropriate professionals to ensure Brinley's safety and stability. Nolan understood. The school was building their own documentation, just as he was. They weren't ready to make formal reports yet, but they were paying attention. I'd like copies of any written observations or conversations involving Brinley, Nolan said. For her therapist. Of course. I'll have them ready for pickup by this afternoon. And if things get worse? If Brinley's behavior continues to change? Principal Dorn met his eyes directly. Then we'll take whatever steps are necessary to protect her. Our obligation is to the child, Mr. Trask. Always. Nolan left the school with a manila envelope containing 3 weeks' worth of teacher observations and counselor notes. The picture they painted was of a confident child being systematically broken down and rebuilt according to someone else's specifications. That evening, he showed the documents to Brinley during homework time. Your principal says Ms. Rodriguez has been checking on you at school. Brinley looked up from her math worksheet. She's nice. She asks how I'm doing. What do you tell her? That I'm fine. I'm fine mostly. What about the not mostly parts? Brinley set down her pencil and considered the question. Sometimes I get worried that I'm doing things wrong. At school, I mean. Like maybe I forgot a rule or something. What kind of rules? I don't know. Just rules. She picked up the pencil again and erased something she'd written. At home, there are lots of rules now. About how to sit and how to fold things and what to say when people are talking. I get confused about which rules are for home and which ones are for everywhere. Nolan pulled his chair closer to hers. Brinley, do you know the difference between a house rule and a life rule? What do you mean? A house rule is something that applies to one specific place. Like taking your shoes off when you come inside or not eating in the living room. Different families have different house rules. Brinley nodded. Okay, a life rule is something that applies everywhere. Like being honest or treating people with kindness or asking for help when you need it. Life rules don't change based on where you are. So what kind of rule is act like a lady? Nolan's hands clenched, but he kept his voice steady. That's not really a rule at all. That's someone's opinion about how they think you should behave. And you get to decide if you agree with that opinion. Well, if I don't agree, then you don't have to follow it. You're allowed to be yourself, Brinley. You're allowed to be 11 years old and make noise and get dirty and ask questions and take up space. Tears started forming in Brinley's eyes. But what if they get mad? Let me worry about that. Your job is to be a kid. My job is to make sure you're safe and loved. That night, after Brinley was asleep, Nolan made copies of all the school documents and stored them in a safety deposit box he'd rented that afternoon. The originals went into a locked file cabinet in his bedroom closet. Then he sat down with his laptop and began researching family attorneys who specialized in custody cases. Nolan began the systematic separation of his assets with the methodical precision he used in the emergency room. First, he opened a new checking account at a different bank and began depositing his paychecks there. He kept enough money in the joint account to cover household expenses and avoid suspicion. Next, he called the utility companies and changed the billing to his name only. When the customer service representative asked about removing Sierra from the account, he explained that they were streamlining their finances and he would be handling all the bills going forward. He forwarded mail to a P.O. box he rented under his name alone. He updated his life insurance beneficiary from Sierra to Brinley. He removed Sierra as an emergency contact at work and replaced her with Jessa. Each change was small, easily explained, and difficult to challenge. Death by 1,000 cuts, all of them legal and documented. Home. Nolan's demeanor toward Sierra and Connie became noticeably cooler. Not hostile, but distant. Professional. He answered their questions with short responses and stopped initiating conversations. Sierra noticed first. "You've been quiet lately," she said on Thursday evening while they were loading the dishwasher. Brinley was upstairs doing homework, and Connie was watching television in the living room. "Have I?" "Very quiet. Almost like you're avoiding us." Nolan rinsed a plate and handed it to her. "Just tired. Work's been busy." "It's more than that." Sierra's voice had an edge to it. "You're different. Cold." "I'm not cold. I'm focused." "Focused on what?" Nolan looked at her directly for the first time in days. "On taking care of my daughter. Our daughter. She's part of our family now." "Is she?" Sierra set down the plate she'd been holding. "What's that supposed to mean?" "Nothing. Forget I said anything." "No, I want to know what you meant by that. Are you saying I don't treat Brinley like family?" Nolan finished rinsing the dishes and dried his hands on a towel. "I'm saying I've been paying attention to what family looks like in this house. And I'm learning." He left the kitchen without elaborating. Sierra followed him into the living room, where Connie looked up from her book with interest. "Nolan thinks I don't treat Brinley like family," Sierra announced. "That's not what I said." "Then what did you say?" Nolan sat down in the chair across from the couch, where both women were now staring at him. "I said I'm learning what family looks like." "Which implies that you don't like what you see," Connie said. "I didn't say that either." "But you're thinking it," Sierra said. "You're judging us." "For what?" "For trying to teach Brinley some responsibility." "Is that what you call it?" "What would you call it?" Nolan was quiet for a long moment, choosing his words carefully. "I call it interesting that my daughter comes home from school asking me if she's too soft and whether she needs to earn her dinner." Sierra's face flushed. "We never said she had to earn her dinner. Didn't you?" "No. We said she should contribute to the household before expecting to be served." "There's a difference." "What kind of contribution?" "Age-appropriate chores. Helping with laundry, cleaning up after herself, learning basic life skills. For 5 hours at a time." "It doesn't take 5 hours." "The other day it did." Connie set down her book and leaned forward. "Nolan, I think you're misunderstanding our intentions. We're not punishing Brinley. We're preparing her for the real world. She's 11. Exactly. Which means she has 7 years to learn how to function as an adult. 7 years to develop work ethic and discipline and respect for authority." "Respect for authority?" "Yes. Children need to understand hierarchy. They need to learn that adults are in charge and that questioning that authority has consequences." Nolan felt something shift inside him, like a gear clicking into place. "What kind of consequences?" "Natural consequences," Sierra said. "If you don't do your part, you don't get the same privileges as people who do. Like eating, like having your meals prepared for you, instead of having to make them yourself." "She's 11, Nolan repeated. "Old enough to make a sandwich, while the adults eat a full meal in front of her." Sierra and Connie exchanged a look. Something passed between them, some silent communication that Nolan wasn't meant to understand. "You're twisting our words," Sierra said finally. "We're not starving her. We're teaching her that actions have consequences, and what actions deserve the consequence of social isolation during family dinner. She's not isolated. She chooses not to participate. By doing what? By failing to clean the baseboards to your satisfaction. By choosing to have a bad attitude about contributing to the family." Nolan stood up. "I see. Do you? Because I don't think you understand what we're trying to accomplish here." "No, I understand perfectly." He looked down at both women, sitting side by side on the couch, united in their certainty. "You're teaching my daughter that love is conditional. That belonging has to be earned. That she's only valuable if she performs to your standards. We're teaching her self-discipline, Connie said. You're teaching her to hate herself. Sierra's eyes flashed with anger. That's ridiculous. And frankly, it's insulting. Everything we do is for her own good. Is it? Yes. And if you weren't so blind to her faults, you'd see that she needs guidance. She needs structure. She needs to learn that the world doesn't revolve around her. What faults? She's lazy. She's manipulative. She cries to get attention and refuses to take responsibility for her mistakes. Nolan felt his control slipping, but he kept his voice level. She's 11 years old, and her mother is dead. Her mother's been dead for 2 years. At some point, she needs to move on. Move on from grieving. Move on from using grief as an excuse for poor behavior. The room went silent. Nolan could hear the refrigerator humming in the kitchen, the tick of the wall clock, the sound of his own heartbeat. I think, he said quietly, that we have very different ideas about what family means. I think, Sierra said, that you're so afraid of being the bad guy that you're doing Brinley a disservice. Someone has to be the adult here. You're right. Someone does. Nolan walked upstairs to check on Brinley. He found her at her desk, homework spread out in front of her, but she wasn't working. She was sitting perfectly still, listening to the conversation downstairs. "Hey," he said softly. She turned around, and he could see that she'd been crying. "I heard you fighting." "We weren't fighting. We were having a discussion. About me." Nolan sat on the edge of her bed. "About family. About how people should treat each other. Are you going to get divorced?" The question hit him like a physical blow. "I don't know, sweetheart. Maybe. Would I have to live with Sierra if you did?" "No. You would stay with me. Always." Relief flooded Brinley's face. "Good. I don't want to live with them." "Why not?" "Because they don't like me. They pretend to when you're here, but when you're gone, they tell me all the things that are wrong with me." Brinley wiped her eyes with the back of her hand. "I try to be better, but nothing I do is right." "There's nothing wrong with you, Brinley. Do you understand that?" "Nothing." "Then why do they hate me?" Nolan was quiet for a moment, thinking about how to answer that question honestly without damaging her further. "Some people," he said finally, "are so unhappy with themselves that they try to make other people unhappy too. It makes them feel better about their own problems. Is that why they're mean to me?" "I think so. And I think they see how much I love you, and that makes them jealous. Jealous of me, jealous of our relationship, of how close we are, of how much you mean to me." Brinley considered this. "So it's not really about me. It's about them." "That's right. But I still have to live with it. Not for much longer." She looked at him with hope and fear mixed together in her dark eyes. "Promise?" "I promise." That night, Nolan made more notes. Not just about what Sierra and Connie had said, but about how they'd said it. The casual cruelty, the united front, the way they'd justified their behavior even when confronted with its effects. They weren't going to change. They weren't going to suddenly develop empathy or recognize that their treatment of Brinley was harmful, which meant he needed to remove Brinley from their influence permanently. And he needed to do it in a way that would protect her from any future contact. Nolan's plan required Sierra to reveal herself publicly. Her vanity and need for social validation would be her downfall, but he needed to create the right opportunity. "I was thinking," he said to Connie on Saturday morning, "maybe you'd like to host your book club here again next week. Show off how nice the house looks." Connie's face lit up. "Really? I thought you didn't like having people over." "I don't mind. And the house has never looked better." He gestured toward the spotless living room. "You and Sierra have done amazing work getting everything organized. We have, haven't we?" Connie's chest swelled with pride. "The ladies were very impressed last time, especially with how well-behaved Brinley was. She's learned a lot from you." "She has. It's remarkable what consistent guidance can accomplish." Nolan texted Trevor that afternoon, having some neighbors over Tuesday evening. "Would you and Emma like to come by?" "Nothing formal, just being social." Trevor's response was quick. "Sure. What time?" 7:30. "Just casual conversation. Maybe bring your appetite. I think there will be plenty of food." "Sounds good." Looking forward to it. On Monday, Nolan took Brinley to her appointment with Dr. Mitchell. The child psychologist was a woman in her 50s with kind eyes and a gentle manner. She spent an hour talking with Brinley alone, then another 30 minutes with Nolan. "I'd like to see Brinley again next week," Dr. Mitchell said. "There are some concerning patterns in her responses that warrant further evaluation." "What kind of patterns?" "She demonstrates hypervigilance around adult approval. She asks permission for things that shouldn't require permission. She has an unusual preoccupation with being good and an exaggerated fear of making mistakes." "Is that consistent with emotional abuse?" Dr. Mitchell chose her words carefully. "It's consistent with a child who has learned that love and safety are conditional on perfect behavior. That kind of learning usually comes from an environment where criticism is constant and praise is rare." "What about her home situation?" "She describes feeling like she's always in trouble, even when she doesn't know what she's done wrong. She talks about learning to be like a lady instead of acting like a child. She mentions adults who help her be better by pointing out her flaws." "Does she give specific examples?" "She described being required to clean for hours as a game, but seemed confused about why the adults laughed at her efforts. She talked about sometimes not being included in family meals because she hadn't earned the privilege." Nolan felt his jaw clench. "Is that grounds for a formal report?" "I'm going to document my observations and recommendations. If the pattern continues or escalates, we may need to involve Child Protective Services. And if I were to remove her from that environment, that would be the ideal outcome." Children are remarkably resilient when they're placed in consistently safe and loving homes. Tuesday evening arrived with perfect timing. Sierra spent the afternoon preparing for book club, arranging flowers, and setting out appetizers. Connie cleaned the house from top to bottom, with Brinley following behind to fix the details. By 7 p.m., both women were dressed and ready to impress. Sierra wore a navy blue dress that cost more than Nolan made in a week. Connie had on her best jewelry and enough perfume to scent the entire living room. The book club ladies arrived promptly at 7:30. 5 women in their 50s and 60s, all dressed for an occasion. They complimented the house, the refreshments, and Sierra's hosting skills with the enthusiasm of people who genuinely enjoyed social gatherings. Trevor knocked on the door at exactly 7:45. Nolan introduced him as their neighbor and invited him to join the group. Trevor was wearing a casual button-down shirt and khakis, carrying a bottle of wine as a house gift. "How nice to meet more of the neighbors," one of the book club ladies said. "Are you in the book club too?" "No, just dropping by," Trevor said with a smile. "Nolan mentioned you were having people over. We're discussing family dynamics in contemporary literature," Connie announced. "It's fascinating how different authors approach the challenges of blended families." "That does sound interesting," Trevor said. "I'm a single parent myself, so family dynamics are definitely relevant." Sierra stepped forward. "We were just talking about how rewarding it can be to help children develop better habits, especially children who've experienced trauma." "Oh, you work with traumatized children?" one of the ladies asked. "Not professionally, but I have a stepdaughter who lost her mother. It's been a learning experience." "How wonderful that you've taken her on," another lady said. "That can't be easy." "It's not," Sierra agreed. "But with patience and consistency, you can teach them to be contributing members of the family." Nolan watched Trevor's face carefully. His neighbor was listening with polite interest, but Nolan could see him processing the conversation. "What kind of contributions?" Trevor asked. "Age-appropriate responsibilities," Connie answered. "Cleaning, organizing, learning to take care of herself and her environment." "Makes sense," Trevor said. "My daughter does chores too. But does she understand that privileges have to be earned?" Sierra asked. "That's the key. Children need to learn that nothing in life is free, even in their own homes, especially in their own homes. Home is where they learn the values they'll carry into the world." One of the book club ladies shifted uncomfortably. "Well, children do need some structure." "Exactly," Sierra said, warming to her theme. "Structure and accountability. Some children try to manipulate adults with tears or sulking, but you can't let that work. You have to stay consistent with your expectations." "What if they're genuinely upset?" Trevor asked. "Then they need to learn to regulate their emotions appropriately. Crying doesn't solve problems. Work does." Connie nodded approvingly. "We've made tremendous progress with Brinley. She's learning to channel her energy into useful activities instead of wallowing in self-pity. Self-pity. Trevor's tone was carefully neutral. About her mother. It's been 2 years, but she was still using grief as an excuse for poor behavior. What kind of poor behavior? Messiness. Laziness. Expecting to be taken care of instead of contributing. Sierra's voice carried a note of satisfaction. But we've trained her to be more useful, haven't we, Mother? The words hung in the air like a confession. Several of the book club ladies exchanged glances. Trevor's expression didn't change, but Nolan saw his hand move slightly toward his phone. Trained her? One of the ladies asked. Well, taught her, Sierra backtracked. Guided her. Helped her develop better habits. It's remarkable what consistent guidance can accomplish, Connie added. She went from being a demanding, emotional child to someone who actually contributes to the household. How old did you say she was? Trevor asked. 11, Sierra said. Old enough to understand responsibility. And what does responsibility look like for an 11-year-old? Taking care of her own space. Helping with family chores. Learning that actions have consequences. Such as, Sierra and Connie exchanged a look, realizing perhaps that they were being more specific than they'd intended. Natural consequences, Connie said. If you don't do your part, you don't get the same privileges as people who do. Like what? Like having meals prepared for you instead of making your own, Sierra said, her voice defensive now. Like participating in family activities instead of reflecting on your choices. The room had grown noticeably quieter. The book club ladies were looking uncomfortable, and Trevor was openly staring at Sierra. So if she doesn't do chores to your satisfaction, she doesn't eat with the family? Trevor asked. She eats. She just has to prepare her own food, while the adults eat a prepared meal. Yes, that's how she learns the value of contribution. And how often does this happen? Sierra's face was flushed now, often enough for her to understand the lesson. Trevor nodded slowly. I see. One of the book club ladies cleared her throat. Well, this has been enlightening, but perhaps we should get back to discussing the book. The conversation moved on, but the damage was done. Trevor stayed for another 30 minutes, making polite conversation and observing the family dynamics. When Brinley came downstairs to say goodnight, he watched how she moved through the room. She was quiet, careful, apologetic for interrupting. She asked permission to get a glass of water from the kitchen. She apologized again when one of the ladies complimented her manners. Such a well-behaved child, the lady said to Sierra. You've done wonderful work with her. Thank you, Sierra said, preening. It's all about consistency. After the guests left, Sierra was euphoric. That went so well. The ladies were so impressed with how Brinley has improved. She certainly has learned to behave, Connie agreed. Nolan helped clean up while listening to them replay the evening's highlights. They were particularly pleased with the compliments they'd received about their parenting approach. Trevor seemed very interested in our methods, Sierra said. Maybe we should write a book. Healing traumatized children through structure and accountability. That's not a bad idea, Connie said. There are so many parents struggling with difficult children. Nolan loaded the last of the glasses into the dishwasher and checked his phone. Trevor had sent a text message 20 minutes earlier. Need to talk. Call me when you can. Nolan waited until Sierra and Connie were upstairs, then stepped onto the back patio and dialed Trevor's number. That was enlightening, Trevor said without preamble. What did you think? I think they just confessed to emotionally abusing your daughter in front of 6 witnesses. You recorded it. Every word. They literally said they trained her to be useful and that she has to earn basic privileges like eating with the family. Is the audio clear? Crystal clear. And I wasn't the only one who was disturbed by what they were saying. Those book club ladies looked horrified. Would they testify to what they heard? I think so. What they described isn't normal parenting. It's systematic psychological manipulation of a grieving child. Nolan felt a weight settle in his chest. Relief mixed with determination. I'm going to need that recording. You'll have it, along with a written statement about what I observed. Trevor paused. Nolan, I see Brinley in your backyard sometimes. She always looks so small and careful, like she's afraid of taking up space. She is afraid. They've spent months teaching her that she doesn't deserve to take up space. When are you going to move against them? Soon. I just need to make sure I have enough evidence to protect her permanently. You do. What they described tonight isn't discipline. It's abuse. And they were proud of it. After hanging up, Nolan sat in the darkness of his backyard and looked up at Brinley's bedroom window. A soft light glowed behind her curtains. She was probably reading or drawing, finding comfort in activities that no one could criticize or take away from her. Tomorrow, he would begin the endgame. Wednesday morning dawned gray and cold. Nolan had taken a personal day from work, telling his supervisor he needed to handle family business. He spent the morning at his attorney's office, reviewing documents and strategies. James Morrison was a family law specialist who came highly recommended by the hospital's legal department. He was a thin man in his 40s with sharp eyes and a reputation for thorough preparation. "You've built a solid case," Morrison said, spreading the evidence across his conference table. Video documentation, professional evaluations, school reports, witness testimony. It's comprehensive. Is it enough? More than enough for an emergency custody order. The pattern of emotional abuse is clear and well documented. Morrison picked up Dr. Mitchell's report. The psychological evaluation is particularly damning. Your daughter is exhibiting classic symptoms of systematic psychological manipulation. What about Sierra's parental rights? Step-parents have limited rights compared to biological parents, and any rights she might have will be nullified by evidence of abuse. Morrison gathered the documents into neat stacks. The recorded confession from Tuesday night seals it. She admitted to using food and social isolation as punishment for an 11-year-old child. How do we proceed? Carefully. If Sierra realizes what's happening, she might escalate her behavior toward Brinley or try to destroy evidence. Morrison pulled out a legal folder. I've prepared a separation agreement that removes both Sierra and her mother from home. It's generous enough that they might sign it voluntarily. And if they don't, then we file for emergency custody and restraining orders. With this evidence, the court will likely grant both immediately. Nolan reviewed the separation agreement. It was indeed generous. Sierra would keep her car, receive a lump sum payment, and retain access to certain joint assets. In exchange, she would vacate the home immediately and waive any claims to custody or visitation with Brinley. What about the house? It's in your name only, purchased before the marriage. She has no legal claim to it. Morrison made a note on his pad. The key is presenting this as a business transaction, not an emotional confrontation. Keep your tone neutral and focus on the facts. And if she tries to make accusations against me, we're prepared for that. Every witness statement supports your character and parenting. The school documentation shows Brinley's decline coincided with Sierra's increased involvement in her life. Dr. Mitchell's evaluation confirms that Brinley feels safe with you and anxious around Sierra. Morrison handed him a black folder containing copies of all the evidence. Present this along with the separation agreement. Give them time to review everything, but make it clear that this is their only opportunity to handle things quietly. How much time? 24 hours. Enough to consult an attorney if they want, but not enough to mount a serious counterattack. Nolan left the attorney's office with a folder and a clear plan. He picked up Brinley from school and took her to Jess's house for the evening. I need to have a difficult conversation with Sierra and Connie, he explained to Brinley in Jess's driveway. You're going to stay here tonight, just to be safe. Are you going to tell them to leave? I'm going to give them a choice about how they want to leave. Brinley hugged him tightly. I don't want to go back there. You won't have to. I promise. Jessa met them at the front door. She'd already prepared the guest room and had dinner waiting. Everything's going to be fine, she told Brinley. Your dad's got this handled. At home, Nolan found Sierra and Connie in the living room watching television. They looked up expectantly when he entered. Where's Brinley? Sierra asked. She's having a sleepover with a friend. Nolan sat down across from them, the black folder in his lap. We need to talk. About what? Connie's tone was wary. About this family. About what's been happening in this house. Sierra muted the television. If this is about last night, those ladies were very complimentary about our approach with Brinley. No, Sierra. This is about abuse. The word hung in the air like a physical presence. Both women stared at him. Excuse me. Sierra's voice was dangerously quiet. Emotional abuse. Systematic psychological manipulation. Whatever you want to call it. Nolan opened the folder and removed the separation agreement. This needs to end. I don't know what you think. I think I have documentation, Nolan interrupted. He slid the agreement across the coffee table. Video evidence, professional evaluations, witness testimony, and recorded confessions. Sierra picked up the document with shaking hands. What is this? A separation agreement. Very generous terms. You can review it with an attorney if you want. Connie leaned over to read along with Sierra. This says we have to leave the house. Yes. And that Sierra gives up all parental rights to Brinley. Yes. Sierra's face went white, then red. You can't be serious. I'm completely serious. Nolan pulled out Dr. Mitchell's report. Brinley has been evaluated by a child psychologist. The findings are conclusive. What findings? That she's being systematically abused by her stepmother and step-grandmother. That she's exhibiting classic symptoms of psychological manipulation. That she's afraid to eat, sleep, or exist normally in her own home. That's ridiculous. Sierra's voice was rising. We've done nothing but try to help her. Help her what? Learn to hate herself? Learn that love is conditional? Learn that she has to earn basic human needs like food and shelter. Connie stood up abruptly. We don't have to listen to this. Yes, you do. Nolan's voice was calm, but implacable. Because if you don't sign that agreement, I file these documents with the court tomorrow morning. He pulled out the video stills, the school reports, Trevor's written statement. Emergency custody order. Restraining orders. Formal child abuse investigation. Sierra was reading the psychological evaluation now, her face growing paler with each page. This is all lies. Brinley is manipulating everyone. She's playing the victim to get attention. She's 11 years old. She's smart enough to know what to say to get sympathy. Listen to yourself, Sierra. You're accusing a grieving child of orchestrating an elaborate deception to frame you for abuse. She is grieving. That's the problem. She's stuck in grief and using it to avoid responsibility. Nolan pulled out his phone and opened the video app. Do you want to see what responsibility looks like for an 11-year-old in this house? He played a clip from the previous week. Sierra and Connie watching Brinley scrub baseboards with a toothbrush while they critiqued her technique. The timestamp showed it had lasted 3 hours. Turn it off, Sierra said. This is what you call teaching responsibility. Nolan played another clip. Brinley folding laundry while Connie criticized every fold. Or this. A third clip. Brinley asleep on the couch in dirty clothes while they ate takeout in front of her. Stop, Connie said. Why? This is your work. You should be proud of it. Nolan put away the phone. You told 6 people on Tuesday night that you trained her to be useful. This is what that training looks like. Sierra was crying now. Not the manipulative tears of someone caught in a lie, but the desperate tears of someone whose carefully constructed world was collapsing. We were trying to help her, she whispered. No, you weren't. You were trying to erase her. You were trying to turn her into someone who wouldn't remind you that I loved someone before you. That's not true, isn't it? You couldn't stand that I had a daughter who represented my life with Emma. You couldn't stand that Brinley was evidence that I'd been happy before you came along. Connie sat back down heavily. This is all blown out of proportion. Every family has adjustment periods. Adjustment periods don't involve starving children or forcing them to clean for hours as entertainment. We never starved her. You withheld food as punishment. You isolated her during family meals. You made her watch you eat while she went hungry. Nolan's voice remained steady, but his words cut like surgical instruments. You broke her down systematically until she believed she deserved it. Sierra looked up from the separation agreement. These terms are ridiculous. You want us to leave with nothing. I want you to leave with your freedom and your dignity intact. The alternative is criminal charges. You can't prove criminal charges. Child endangerment, emotional abuse, failure to provide adequate nutrition and supervision. Nolan counted on his fingers. The district attorney's office is very interested in cases involving systematic abuse of children. You're bluffing. I'm not. He pulled out his phone again. I can call Detective Rodriguez right now. She specializes in child abuse cases, and she's been reviewing my evidence for the past week. Sierra and Connie exchange a look. The same silent communication he'd seen before, but this time it carried panic instead of confidence. How long do we have to decide? Connie asked. 24 hours. You can consult with an attorney, but that's your window. And if we sign this, it all goes away. The evidence gets stored in a safety deposit box. As long as you honor the agreement and stay away from Brinley, it stays there. What about our things? You can take your personal belongings. Everything else stays with the house. Sierra stood up and walked to the window, looking out the neighborhood where she'd planned to build her perfect blended family image. I need to think, she said. You have until tomorrow evening. After that, I file with the court. Nolan collected his documents and stood to leave. One more thing. If either of you contacts Brinley, threatens her, or attempts to manipulate her in any way, the deal is off and I prosecute to the full extent of the law. Where will we go? Connie asked. That's not my concern anymore. He left them in the living room, holding the separation agreement between them like a bomb that might explode at any moment. Nolan spent the night at Jessa's house, sleeping on the couch while Brinley took the guest room. He woke early to find her in the kitchen, helping Jessa make pancakes. How did you sleep? He asked. Really good. I didn't have any bad dreams. Brinley flipped a pancake with careful precision. Jessa taught me how to make them fluffy. The secret is not overmixing the batter, Jessa explained. Just like people, sometimes the best thing you can do is leave them alone to be themselves. Nolan's phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. This morning. He showed the message to Jessa, who frowned. That was fast. Too fast. They're planning something. What do you want to do? Go home and see what they've come up with. But Brinley stays here. Absolutely. Nolan hugged his daughter goodbye and promised to call her as soon as he could. Then he drove home to face whatever Sierra and Connie had planned. He found them in the living room with a man he didn't recognize. Middle-aged, wearing an expensive suit, carrying a briefcase. Their attorney, presumably. Nolan, Sierra said, standing as he entered. This is David Chun, our lawyer. The attorney stood and extended his hand. Mr. Chun, I've been reviewing your allegations with my clients. Nolan didn't shake his hand. And we have some concerns about the validity of your evidence. Specifically, the video recordings made without consent and the biased nature of your witnesses. I see. We're prepared to make a counteroffer. My clients will agree to a trial separation, with joint custody of Brinley and shared access to marital assets. Nolan sat down across from them. That's not going to work for me. Then perhaps we should discuss the legal ramifications of secret surveillance and potential defamation claims. Defamation, statements made to school officials, medical professionals, and neighbors that falsely characterize my client's parenting approach. Nolan almost smiled. They were trying to flip the script, make him the aggressor. What statements? Accusations of abuse based on normal disciplinary measures. Attempts to turn Brinley against her stepmother. Invasion of privacy through illegal recording. The recordings were made in my own home with my daughter's knowledge and consent. There's nothing illegal about that. A child can't give legal consent to surveillance. A parent can authorize surveillance of their own child for safety purposes. Mr. Chun consulted his notes. Nevertheless, we believe a court would find your behavior concerning, especially given your history. What history? Sierra leaned forward. The angry outbursts, the threats, the way you've been manipulating Brinley against us. What angry outburst? Last week you screamed at me about the laundry, Sierra said. You threw a plate against the wall. Brinley was terrified. Nolan stared at her. That never happened. Yes, it did. I have photos of the broken plate. Show me. Sierra pulled out her phone and displayed a photo of ceramic pieces on the kitchen floor. Brinley was crying in her room for hours afterward. That's interesting, Nolan said calmly. Because Brinley was at school last week when I was doing laundry, and we don't own plates that look like that. Sierra's face flickered with uncertainty. Also interesting, Nolan continued, that you would happen to have your phone ready to photograph evidence of my alleged abuse, but never thought to call the police. Mr. Chin jumped in. My clients were trying to protect the family unit. They hoped to address your anger management issues privately. What other evidence do you have? Sierra pulled out a notebook. Documentation of erratic behavior, verbal abuse, threats against me and my mother, such as, you told us we were sick and twisted. You said you were going to destroy us. When did I say that? Several times. Most recently on Tuesday night. Nolan pulled out his own phone. That's interesting because I have the entire conversation from Tuesday night recorded. Would you like to hear it? The room went silent. Or maybe you'd like to hear Monday's conversation. Or Sunday's. Nolan scrolled through his audio files. I've been recording every interaction we've had for the past 2 weeks. Mr. Chin's confident expression was beginning to crack. You've been secretly recording your wife. I've been protecting myself from false accusations, which apparently was a smart move. Sierra was staring at the phone in Nolan's hand. You can't use those in court. They're inadmissible. Actually, in Kansas, I only need one-party consent to record conversations. Since I'm one of the parties, they're completely admissible. This is harassment, Connie said. No, this is documentation. Just like the video footage of you forcing my daughter to scrub floors for hours while you watched and laughed. Mr. Chan was frantically making notes. We may need to reconsider our approach. Yes, you should. Nolan put away his phone. Because while you've been manufacturing evidence against me, I've been collecting real evidence against your clients, such as professional evaluation confirming emotional abuse, school documentation of Brinley's deteriorating mental health, witness testimony from Tuesday night's dinner party, and your client's recorded confession that they trained my daughter through food restriction and social isolation. The attorney's face went pale. They never said that. They said it to 6 witnesses, one of whom recorded the entire conversation. Nolan looked directly at Sierra. You literally told a room full of people that you trained an 11-year-old to earn her meals and that she wasn't allowed to eat with the family if she didn't perform chores to your satisfaction. That's not what I meant. That's exactly what you meant. And it's exactly what you've been doing. Mr. Chun closed his briefcase. I need to speak with my clients privately. Take all the time you need. But the offer expires at 6 p.m. today. Sierra stood up abruptly. This isn't over, Nolan. I'm not giving up my rights to Brinley. You don't have any rights to Brinley. You're not her biological parent, and you've forfeited any moral claim to her care through your behavior. I'm her stepmother. I've been raising her for 2 years. You've been abusing her for 2 years. There's a difference. I love her. No, you don't. You love the idea of having a perfect family to show off on social media. You love the sympathy you get for being a martyred stepmother. But you don't love Brinley. You resent her existence. Sierra's mask finally slipped completely. She ruined everything. You were supposed to be starting fresh with me, but instead you brought this broken, needy child who reminded everyone that I was second choice. There it is, Nolan said quietly. She was always in the way, always needing attention, always crying about her dead mother. I tried to fix her, to make her into someone who could function in our family, but she just kept being pathetic and weak. Connie grabbed Sierra's arm. Stop talking. But Sierra was beyond controlling herself. I gave up everything to marry you. I could have had anyone, but I chose you because I thought we could build something beautiful together. Instead, I got stuck with your emotional baggage and your ungrateful daughter. Did you get all that? Nolan asked Mr. Chun. The attorney was staring at Sierra in horror. I think our business here is concluded. Wait, Connie said. We can still work something out. No, Nolan said. We can't. You have until 6 p.m. to sign the separation agreement. After that, I file criminal charges. Mr. Chun gathered his papers hurriedly. My clients will need new representation for any future proceedings. He left without saying goodbye to Sierra or Connie. You've destroyed my life, Sierra said to Nolan. No, I've ended your access to my daughter. Your life is whatever you make of it from here. What about my things? Pack them. You have until tomorrow morning. Sierra ran upstairs, her footsteps loud on the hardwood. Connie remained in the living room, looking older and smaller than she had that morning. She's not a bad person, Connie said quietly. She just wanted to be important to you. She chose to take that out on a child. Children are resilient. Brinley would have been fine. Brinley was not fine. Brinley was being systematically destroyed by people who were supposed to protect her. Connie stood to follow her daughter upstairs. You'll regret this, Nolan. Sierra made you look good, made you feel important. You'll never find anyone else who will try as hard to make you happy. I'm not looking for someone to make me happy. I'm looking to make my daughter safe. That afternoon, Nolan received a text from Sierra. Agreement signed. We'll be out by morning. That he forwarded the message to his attorney, then drove to Jess's house to collect Brinley. Is it over? She asked as they pulled into their driveway. It's over. Are they gone? Not yet, but they will be by tomorrow. That evening, Nolan ordered pizza, and he and Brinley ate in the living room while watching a movie. It was the first time in months that she'd eaten a full meal without looking over her shoulder or asking permission for seconds. Dad, yeah, when they're gone, can we paint my room? What color? Something bright, like yellow or orange. Something happy. We can paint it any color you want. She curled up next to him on the couch, her head against his shoulder. For the first time in weeks, she looked relaxed. Sierra and Connie left early Thursday morning while Nolan was at work and Brinley was at school. They took their personal belongings and nothing else, as agreed. The house felt different when Nolan came home that evening. Lighter, cleaner in a way that had nothing to do with physical cleanliness. Brinley ran through every room, touching furniture and walls like she was reclaiming territory. In the kitchen, she opened cabinets and refrigerator doors, surveying the contents with wonder. Can I really eat any of this? She asked. Any of it. All of it. Whenever you're hungry. She made herself a sandwich for no reason other than because she could. Then she sat at the kitchen table and ate it slowly, savoring each bite. Over the next few days, Brinley began to emerge from the shell she'd built around herself. She laughed more freely. She asked questions without apologizing. She left her books and art supplies scattered around her room instead of organizing them by color. That on Saturday morning, Trevor brought his daughter Emma over to help rake leaves in the backyard. The two girls worked together, jumping in leaf piles and chattering about school and books and everything 11-year-old girls talk about. How's she doing? Trevor asked Nolan as they watched from the patio. Better every day. It's like watching someone remember how to be themselves. Kids are tough. She'll bounce back. She shouldn't have had to bounce back from anything. She should have been safe in her own home. Trevor leaned against the patio railing. You did the right thing. It took courage to stand up to them. It took too long. I should have acted sooner. You acted when you had enough evidence to make it stick. If you'd moved too fast, they might have one. That afternoon, Jessica came by with groceries and helped them make dinner. A real dinner, with vegetables and homemade bread and dessert. Brinley set the table with care, but not the obsessive precision she developed under Sierra's supervision. Natural care, the kind that comes from wanting to contribute rather than fear consequences. This feels like a real family dinner, Brinley said as they sat down to eat. What's a real family dinner? Nolan asked. Where everyone gets to eat the same food and nobody has to earn their place at the table. Jessa reached over and squeezed Brinley's hand. That's exactly what a real family dinner is. 2 weeks later, Dr. Mitchell completed her follow-up evaluation of Brinley. The change was remarkable. The hypervigilance was gone. The excessive need for approval had diminished. She was sleeping through the night again, eating normally, and engaging with her schoolwork with renewed confidence. It's like she's a different child, Dr. Mitchell told Nolan. Or rather, like she's herself again. How long before she's fully recovered? Children are remarkably resilient when they're in consistently safe environments. I'd like to continue seeing her for another month or two, just to make sure the progress continues, but I'm very optimistic. What about long-term effects? She may always be more sensitive to criticism than other children. She may need extra reassurance during stressful periods. But with continued support and love, she should develop into a healthy, confident adult. That evening, Nolan found Brinley in her newly painted bedroom. The walls were sunshine yellow, and she'd hung her own artwork alongside photos of her and Emma from before the cancer. Her books were arranged haphazardly on the shelves, mixed in with art supplies and stuffed animals. I like your room, he said from the doorway. It feels like mine again. She was working on a watercolor painting of the oak tree in their backyard. The tree where Emma used to push her on the swing, where they'd carved their initials before she got sick. That's beautiful work. It's for Mom. I'm going to put it on her grave next week. I think she'd love it. Brinley added another brush stroke to the autumn leaves. Dad, do you think Mom will be proud of me? I think she'd be amazed by how strong and brave you are. I don't feel brave. Brave doesn't mean not being scared. Brave means doing the right thing even when you are scared. Like telling you what Sierra and Connie were doing. Exactly like that. She set down her brush and turned to look at him. Are you going to get married again? I don't know. Maybe someday. Would that bother you? Not if she's nice to me. And if she likes me the way I am instead of trying to change me. Anyone I marry would have to love you exactly the way you are. That's not negotiable. Brinley smiled and went back to her painting. Good. A month later, Nolan received divorce papers in the mail. Sierra was requesting half of their shared assets and alimony, despite the separation agreement she'd signed. Her new attorney was claiming she'd signed under duress. Morrison called that afternoon. She's testing to see if you'll fight or if you'll just pay to make her go away. What do you recommend? Fight. We have documentation of the abuse and her voluntary agreement to leave. She has no grounds for alimony, and her claims of duress are baseless. How long will it take? 6 months, maybe less. She doesn't have a strong case, and her previous attorney will likely testify that she was competent when she signed the agreement. Do it. The divorce proceedings were ugly but brief. Sierra's attempts to portray herself as a victim fell apart when the court reviewed the evidence. The video footage, professional evaluations, and witness testimony painted a clear picture of systematic abuse. Trevor testified about the book club conversation. Dr. Mitchell presented her findings. Even Principal Dorn provided a statement about Brinley's dramatic improvement after Sierra left the home. That Sierra's final gambit was to claim that Nolan had brainwashed Brinley against her. But when the judge interviewed Brinley privately, the 11-year-old's testimony was clear and consistent. I don't want to see Sierra anymore, Brinley told the judge. She made me feel bad about myself all the time. She said I was soft like my mom, but being like my mom isn't bad. My mom was wonderful. The judge granted Nolan full custody, dissolved the marriage, and issued a permanent restraining order preventing Sierra or Connie from contacting Brinley. That evening, Nolan and Brinley sat on the back patio watching the sunset. The oak tree's branches were bare now, but new buds were already forming for spring. It's really over? Brinley asked. It's really over. Good. She was quiet for a moment. Dad, I'm glad you didn't just yell at them. What do you mean? I'm glad you made a plan and collected evidence and did it the smart way. It worked better than just being angry. Nolan smiled. Where did you learn that? From watching you. You're always calm when things are scary. Like at the hospital when people are hurt or when Sierra was being mean. You don't just react. You think first. Sometimes thinking first is the most important thing you can do. I want to be like that when I grow up. Smart and calm and protective of people who need help. You already are like that, Brinley. You've always been like that. That weekend, they took down the family photos that included Sierra and Connie. In their place, Nolan hung new pictures. Him and Brinley at the zoo, Brinley with her artwork from school, the two of them raking leaves with Trevor and his daughter. The last photo he hung was from the previous weekend. Brinley sitting under the oak tree, painting. Her face was peaceful, concentrated, completely absorbed in her art. She looked like herself again. She looked like Emma's daughter and his daughter and nobody else's in the kitchen. He found a note Brinley had left on the refrigerator. Dad, thank you for keeping me safe. I love you. Brinley. Below it, she'd drawn a picture of their house with two figures standing in front of it. A tall man and a small girl, holding hands, smiling. Above them, she'd written in her careful 11-year-old handwriting, home. Nolan stood in his kitchen, looking at his daughter's artwork, and thought about the conversation he'd had with Sierra and Connie that night 3 months ago. They'd asked what contributions an 11-year-old should make to a household. The answer was simple. She should feel safe enough to be a child. She should know that her place at the table wasn't conditional on perfect behavior. She should understand that love isn't something you earn through performance. She should be allowed to take up space. Brinley had cleaned for 5 hours that day in October, scrubbing baseboards while grown women watched and laughed. But Nolan had cleaned the whole house of them, and now Brinley was home.